The weight of the gift bags dug into my fingers, a sharp, insistent pain that mirrored the ache of anticipation in my chest. I stepped off the jet bridge into the bustling chaos of Boston's Logan International Airport. December 25th, 2:15 p.m., Christmas Day. All around me, the air crackled with reunions. A young Marine surprised his mother, who collapsed into his arms with a sob that echoed through the terminal. Children shrieked with glee, launching themselves at grandparents. I clutched my packages tighter, 5 bags in total, each a vessel of love and memory. For my daughter, Olivia, the heavy velvet box held her grandmother Eleanor's locket. Inside, a tiny, faded photograph of Eleanor and me on our wedding day. For my granddaughter, Lily, the life-size dollhouse she'd circled and a catalog during our last video chat. For Richard, my son-in-law, a rare, first-edition collection of novels by his favorite author. My heart hammered against my ribs. Soon that would be me, sweeping little Lily into a hug that smelled of pine needles and home. I found a spot near the arrivals monitor and pulled out my phone, dialing Olivia. "Dad!" Her voice was a flatline, stretched thin and devoid of warmth. "Liv, sweetheart, I'm here. Just landed. The flight was—" "Oh, right." She cut in, the sound of clattering dishes in the background. "Dad, listen, we're running a little behind. Just wait for us by the passenger pickup, curb B. We'll be there soon." Something in her tone, a cold, metallic edge of obligation, made the festive air around me feel thin. "Is everything okay? You sound—" "Everything's fine," she snapped a little too quickly. "It's just, last-minute Christmas madness." I didn't know. Eleanor and I had always treated arrivals like sacred events. We'd be at the airport an hour early, armed with handmade signs and hot cocoa, rather than let a loved one wait a single minute alone. Should I head to baggage claim or— "Dad, I have to go. Just wait at curb B. We'll see you there." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a sudden unnerving silence echoing in my ear. A family nearby erupted in laughter, and I watched a father lift his daughter onto his shoulders, her tiny hands lost in his hair. The joy was so profound, so effortless, it felt like a language I was suddenly forgetting how to speak. I shook my head, blaming my unease on travel fatigue. She said they were coming, and so I settled in to wait. I collected my suitcase and navigated the river of joyful reunions, my own island of solitude. Outside, the Boston air was sharp and unforgiving. Snowflakes, fat and lazy, drifted down, blanketing the cars in a pristine sheet of white. I found a bench at passenger pickup, curb B, and arranged my gift bags at my feet like a fortress. 3 p.m. A text message lit up my phone. It was from Olivia. "Traffic is a nightmare. Be patient." Be patient. Not, "So sorry, Dad," or "Can't wait to see you." Just a command. I ran a thumb over the velvet box in my pocket. Inside that locket was a legacy of love, a piece of Eleanor that I was entrusting to her. Olivia would understand its significance. She had to. I reached into my inner coat pocket and felt the crisp edges of 2 envelopes. The first contained a certified check for $100,000, the down payment for the new house Olivia and Richard had been dreaming of. The second established a $50,000 educational trust for Lily. After I sold Stone's Hardware and Supply, the business I had bled for over 40 years, the money was just sitting there. Its only purpose was to provide my family with the security I never had. Selling the store had felt like amputating a limb, but seeing the joy on Olivia's face would make it all worthwhile. 3:45 p.m. My initial excitement had dissolved into a dull, persistent ache in my lower back. The cold was beginning to seep through my coat. I watched as car after car pulled up, disgorging happy passengers into the arms of their waiting families. Each embrace felt like a small jab to my heart. My phone buzzed. For a hopeful second, I thought it was Olivia,
but it was just a news alert about holiday travel delays. I opened my gallery and looked at the last photo I'd taken with Lily, her gap-toothed grin lighting up the frame. We were standing in front of the old oak tree in my backyard, the same tree I'd taught Olivia to climb. She had sent me photos of their Christmas decorations this year. Stark, minimalist, silver and white. Nothing like the chaotic, colorful, homemade mess that Eleanor and I had so cherished. But traditions change, I reminded myself. I just wished Olivia had sounded like she was happy to see me. The minutes bled into an hour, then 2. The snow was falling harder now, the world turning into a swirl of white. This was beyond traffic. Something was wrong. The happy families were gone, replaced by the weary stragglers of late-night flights. The initial prickle of unease was now a cold dread slowly creeping up my spine. If you've ever felt forgotten or taken for granted by someone you love, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Your support ensures that stories like this one are heard so no one has to feel invisible. Let us know in the comments if you believe family should always come first.
By 6 p.m., the airport had transformed. The festive cheer had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow, sterile echo. The janitorial staff moved with weary resignation, their floor polishers humming a mournful tune. My stomach growled, a hollow protest against the overpriced, stale sandwich I'd forced down hours ago. I had relocated to a hard plastic chair inside, the gift bags a garish, mocking circle around my feet. Each swoosh of the automatic doors sent a fresh blast of Arctic air and a jolt of false hope through me. But it was never them. My mind raced, concocting 1,000 terrible scenarios. A car accident on the slick roads, a sudden illness, little Lily sick on Christmas Day. Fear, sharp and acidic, clawed at my throat. Why wouldn't they answer? At 8:30 p.m., after my 25th unanswered call, my finger trembling with the mixture of cold and rage, she finally picked up. "Dad, what is it now?" The exasperation in her voice was a physical blow. "Now?" I choked out, my voice raspy. "Olivia, I've been here for over 6 hours. I've been calling and calling. I was worried sick. Is everyone all right?" There was a pause. A muffled sound of her hand covering the receiver and a distant murmur of another voice, Richard's. "Look, I'm sorry," she said, her tone suddenly syrupy and false. "We had a major issue with the car, a flat tire on the highway. Can you believe it? On Christmas. We're just getting it sorted. Give us 15 more minutes, maximum, and whatever you do, don't call a taxi." The line went dead before I could even process the words. 15 minutes? After 6 hours of silence, she could promise 15 minutes with such chilling certainty? And the command, "Don't call a taxi." If they were truly stranded, a taxi would be the most logical solution. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order designed to keep me here, waiting. The pieces didn't fit. The flat tire, the sudden ability to answer, the strange prohibition, it all felt like a poorly constructed lie. The warmth I'd been clinging to, the memory of my loving daughter, began to fracture. Through the cracks, I saw something else, something cold and calculating. The dread in my stomach was no longer about their safety. It was about their intentions. The question was no longer if they were okay, but why they were doing this to me. The promised 15 minutes stretched into 30, then an hour. The airport was a ghost town now. A lone security guard made his rounds, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. He gave me a look of pity, the kind reserved for the lost and the forgotten. I had become a permanent fixture in the arrivals hall, a monument to a broken promise. My thumb hovered over Olivia's name. Call number 26, straight to voicemail. Call 27, voicemail. Call 28, voicemail. I tried Richard.
His phone rang and rang, an endless mocking tone that drilled into my skull before clicking over to his polished, professional voicemail message. My worry had curdled into a cold, hard certainty. No accident makes you ignore 35 calls. No family emergency prevents a single text message over the span of 8 hours. This wasn't chaos. This was a choice. This was deliberate. I sank deeper into my chair, the plastic groaning under my weight. The memory of Olivia's college graduation surfaced unbidden. I'd worked double shifts for 6 months to afford the tuition for her final semester of law school, my hands raw from sorting bolts and mixing paint at the hardware store. At the ceremony, she'd given me a brief, obligatory hug before rushing off to a party with her friends, the ones whose parents wrote checks from trust funds. I had stood there alone in my Sunday suit, a proud, foolish father who had mistaken sacrifice for love. Eleanor had seen it then. "You're giving her the world, Arthur," she'd warned gently one night, "but you're not teaching her its value." I'd dismissed her worries, convinced my daughter's ambition was something to be proud of, something to be funded at any cost. I looked at the gift bags. The dollhouse for Lily, the books for Richard, the locket for Olivia. They weren't gifts anymore. They were evidence. Exhibits in the trial of my own naivete. The checks in my pocket felt like dead weight, a fool's ransom for affection that was never really there. 9:45 p.m. Call number 35. Voicemail. That was it. The final call. The end of my patience, the end of my excuses, the end of my hope. I would not spend another minute as a prisoner in this airport. I would go to them. I would find out the truth no matter how ugly. With trembling hands, I gathered my fortress of bags. It was time to stop waiting for my daughter to come to me. It was time I went to her.
"Taxi to Chestnut Hill," I said to the dispatcher, my voice sounding hollow and distant to my own ears. "From Logan International." The cab that pulled up was a welcome cocoon of warmth. The driver, a man about my age named Sam, had kind, weary eyes. He helped me load the mountain of bags into his trunk, his movements gentle and careful. "Christmas visit?" he asked, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror as we pulled away from the curb. "Something like that," I mumbled, watching the sterile lights of the airport recede, a place that now felt like a tomb of broken promises. "Family must be excited to have you," Sam said, navigating the empty, snow-dusted streets. "My son and his wife just got in from Chicago. House is chaos, but it's the best kind of chaos, you know?" I nodded, unable to form words. The best kind of chaos. My daughter had used that exact phrase to describe her fabricated crisis. I stared out the window at the houses twinkling with Christmas lights. In each glowing window, I saw what I was supposed to have. Families together, warm and safe, their bonds illuminated for all to see. "Been a long time since I've seen my daughter," I found myself saying, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Sold my business this year. Thought I'd surprise them, help them out a bit." Sam smiled. "A good father. Nothing better in this world. They're lucky to have you." Lucky. The word was a bitter pill. Had Olivia ever considered herself lucky to have me? Or had I always been a means to an end? A living, breathing ATM whose primary function was to fund her ambitions, her lifestyle, her ascent into a world I could never be a part of. As we turned onto her street, a picturesque lane of stately colonial homes, my breath caught in my throat. Her house was ablaze with light, golden and inviting. 2 expensive cars, a black BMW and a silver Lexus, sat in the driveway, neither with a hint of a flat tire. "Looks like a party," Sam noted cheerfully. Through the large bay window, I could see them, a whole group of people gathered around a long dining table. Laughter, wine glasses raised in a toast, the unmistakable silhouette of Olivia, my daughter, throwing her head back in a moment of carefree joy. And seated at the head of the table, holding court, was a man who was most certainly not me. My heart stopped. There was no crisis. There was no delay. There was just a celebration I was never invited to. "Sir, that'll be $62.50. I fumbled with my wallet, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I pressed a $100 bill into Sam's hand. "Keep it." "Sir, are you sure you're all right?" he asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. "I'm about to be," I said, my voice a low growl. I got out, slammed the door, and stood on the frozen sidewalk as his taxi pulled away, leaving me alone in the cold, staring at the warm, bright lie of my daughter's perfect Christmas. This is the moment everything changes. If your heart is breaking for Arthur right now, please hit the like button to show you stand with him. Don't let this kind of betrayal go unnoticed. Comment with a heart if you believe he deserves justice.
The frigid air was a slap to the face, jolting me into a state of chilling clarity. I hauled my bags up the pristine, shoveled walkway, each step an act of defiance. The cheerful wreath on the door, adorned with silver bells, seemed to mock me. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't want to give her the chance to compose another lie. Instead, I crept to the side of the house, to the dining room window. Peering through a gap in the curtains, I saw the scene in full. Olivia and Richard were hosting his parents, the Caldwells. Mr. Caldwell, a stern-looking man in a tweed jacket, was pontificating about something, a wine glass swirling in his hand. Mrs. Caldwell, draped in pearls, laughed delicately. They were the picture of quiet affluence, the very people whose approval Olivia had craved her entire life. And my daughter, she was glowing, relaxed, utterly content, not a trace of worry on her face. The table was set for 4, not 5. There was never a seat for me. Rage, pure and undiluted, surged through me. This wasn't just neglect. It was a calculated, cruel exclusion. I walked back to the front door, my knuckles white as I gripped the handle of my suitcase. I rang the bell, the chime echoing like a death knell through the house. Footsteps. The door swung open. Olivia's smile froze on her face. Her eyes widened, first in shock, then in pure, unadulterated panic. "Dad, you're here. Oh my God, the car. We were just about to leave to get you." The lies tumbled out, clumsy and transparent. "Were you, Olivia?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet as I pushed past her into the warmth of the foyer. The aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon hung in the air, a sickeningly sweet perfume of their betrayal. The conversation in the dining room died. Richard and his parents stared at me, their expressions a mixture of confusion and surprise. "Arthur," Mr. Caldwell said, rising from his chair, "what a surprise! Olivia told us your flight was delayed until tomorrow." Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Olivia's face was ashen. Richard looked at the floor, a coward caught in the crossfire. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding about my travel plans and my 35 phone calls." Mrs. Caldwell gasped, her hand flying to her pearl necklace. "My dear boy, you were at the airport all this time?" "I need to use the restroom," I announced abruptly, needing a moment to steel myself for what came next. As I walked down the hall, the bathroom door was slightly ajar.
But it was the voices from the adjacent kitchen that stopped me dead in my tracks. Olivia and Richard, whispering furiously, thinking they were safe. I cannot believe he actually showed up. This is a disaster. He's going to ruin the whole night with his working-class stories. My blood ran cold. I know, Olivia whispered back, her voice dripping with venom. God, he's so embarrassing. Did you see the look on your mother's face? I was hoping if we ignored him long enough, he'd just get the hint and go home. I gripped the doorframe, my knuckles turning white. And those ridiculous checks he mentioned on the phone, waving his hardware store money around like he's a Rockefeller. It's pathetic. Just play along. Olivia's voice was now cold and pragmatic. We just have to endure a few more years of it. Once the inheritance comes through, we'll be free. We can sell that dusty old house, pay this one off, and never have to pretend again. The inheritance. They were waiting for me to die. It wasn't just my presence they despised. It was my very existence. I was an obstacle. An embarrassing working-class obstacle standing between them and my money. In that moment, the loving father in me died, and something else, something harder, colder, and far more deliberate was born.
I didn't go to the restroom. I turned and walked back toward the kitchen, my footsteps heavy and deliberate on the polished hardwood floor. They fell silent as I appeared in the doorway, their faces masks of guilt. "Dad," Olivia began, forcing a smile, "we were just talking about how to make you comfortable." "I heard," I said, my voice flat and devoid of all emotion. I heard every word. The color drained from her face. Richard took an involuntary step back, bumping into the stainless steel refrigerator. "You heard?" Olivia stammered. You misunderstood." "Did I?" I stepped into the kitchen, the space suddenly feeling small and claustrophobic. "Did I misunderstand working-class stories? Did I misunderstand that you were hoping I'd get the hint and go home? Or did I misunderstand the part where you're just waiting for my inheritance so you can finally be free of me?" The silence was a confession. I turned and walked back into the living room, where the Caldwells were sitting in awkward suspense. Olivia and Richard followed me like condemned prisoners. "I believe I owe you all an explanation," I said, addressing Richard's parents directly. "Olivia didn't misunderstand my arrival time. She lied. She and your son left me stranded at the airport for 13 hours on Christmas Day because they find me, and I quote, embarrassing." Mr. Caldwell shot to his feet, his face a thundercloud of fury directed at his son. "Richard, is this true?" Richard stared at his feet, mumbling, "It was a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding this," I said, my voice finally rising, filled with 40 years of love and a single night of shattering betrayal. "I came here tonight to give my family the Christmas of their dreams." I reached into my coat and pulled out the 2 envelopes. "This," I said, holding up the first one, "is a certified check for $100,000. It was meant to be the down payment on this very house." Olivia let out a small, choked gasp. "And this," I continued, holding up the second, "establishes a $50,000 education trust for my granddaughter, Lily." I held their future in my hands. I let them see it, let them feel the weight of what they were about to lose. I saw the greed, the raw, desperate hunger flicker in Olivia's eyes. "I overheard you call my life's work hardware store money. You're right, it is. It's money earned with calloused hands, with sleepless nights, with decades of sweat and sacrifice, all for a daughter who sees me as nothing more than a temporary inconvenience before a payout." I looked from Olivia's horrified face to Richard's pathetic one. "So you want my money? You want the inheritance?" I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Then, with deliberate, theatrical slowness, I tore the first check in half, then quarters, then eighths. The pieces fluttered to the floor like bitter confetti. I did the same with the second envelope. There's your inheritance, earned in seconds, gone just as fast. I then reached into my pocket, pulled out the velvet box, and opened it. The locket, Eleanor's locket, gleamed under the light. I snapped the box shut. As of this moment, you are both written out of my will. The entire estate, every penny of the hardware store money, will be donated to charity. You will not see another dime. I turned to the stunned Caldwells. I apologize for ruining your Christmas dinner. Then I looked back at my daughter, her face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. You wanted to be free of me, Olivia. Congratulations, you are. And with that, I left my bags, turned my back on the wreckage of my family, and walked out the door into the cold Christmas night, a free man.
The taxi dropped me off at the entrance to the Four Seasons. The lobby was an oasis of quiet elegance, a world away from the emotional squalor I had just escaped. A fire crackled in a grand marble fireplace, and the air smelled of fresh pine and old money. A suite, I told the man at the check-in desk, the best one you have, for an indefinite stay. He didn't blink an eye. Within minutes, I was escorted to a penthouse suite with a panoramic view of the Boston skyline. The city lights spread out below me like a carpet of scattered jewels. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, not seeing the view, but seeing my future for the first time. For 40 years, every decision, every dollar, every dream had been for Olivia. I had built my life around her, and in doing so, I had forgotten to build one for myself. The pain of her betrayal was still a raw, gaping wound, but beneath it, a new feeling was taking root. Liberation. I took out my phone and deleted Olivia's contact information. I blocked her number. Then, I opened a web browser and typed first-class world cruises. The checks I had torn up were just a fraction of my worth. The sale of the business had left me with more money than I could ever spend. All this time, I had seen it as Olivia's inheritance. Now, I saw it as my life, my adventure, my second chance. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dad, please, don't do this. I'm sorry. We can fix this." I read the words without emotion and deleted the message. Some things once broken can't be fixed. They can only be left behind. I picked up the hotel phone and dialed the concierge. "Good evening," I said, my voice steady and strong. "My name is Arthur Stone. I'd like to book a meeting with a travel agent tomorrow morning. I'm interested in seeing the world. And tell room service to send up their most expensive bottle of champagne. I have a new life to celebrate." As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the dark glass of the window. The man looking back was no longer a forgotten father or an embarrassing old man. He was an adventurer, a philanthropist, a free man. Olivia thought she was waiting for my inheritance to be rich. She had no idea that by casting me out, she had just made me the richest man in the world.
Arthur found his freedom, but so many stories of quiet sacrifice go unheard. If you believe in second chances and the strength to rebuild, please do one small thing that makes a huge difference. Subscribe to this channel and share this story. Let's create a community that values love over greed and proves that the best revenge is a life well lived.